My name is Olivia Walker. I'm 41 years old, an English teacher in Portland, Oregon, and for the past 13 years, I've been Grace's mom. She came into my life when she was just 4 years old, wide-eyed, quiet, clinging to a stuffed bunny missing one ear. From the first moment she called me mom, my heart made a silent promise that she would always have a place where she belonged, always be part of a family that saw her as more than just a shadow at the edge of the room. For the most part, I thought I'd kept that promise. Grace grew up into a thoughtful, artistic, observant girl. She wasn't loud, she wasn't the center of attention, but she always noticed things. Which of her classmates felt left out? Which elderly neighbor needed help carrying groceries? She had this quiet strength about her, and maybe that's why it stung so much when my own family couldn't seem to see her. It all came crashing down one chilly October afternoon. My younger brother, Ethan, had been planning his wedding for months. Grace and I had been looking forward to it, buying dresses, browsing color palettes online, even sketching table arrangement ideas in her notebook. Grace was especially excited. She'd drawn a little floral illustration for the invitations, which Ethan's fiancé had thanked her for with a distracted smile, before sliding the sketch into her purse like a receipt. I brushed it off. That's what I did back then. Brushed things off. Made excuses for why people overlooked her. But 2 weeks before the wedding, while I was grading papers at the kitchen counter and Grace was sketching nearby, my phone buzzed. Ethan. His message was short, blunt. "Hey, Olivia, just a heads up, venue is really strict. No kids allowed at the wedding. Even Grace. Sorry, we have to keep things streamlined." At first, I reread it thinking I'd misunderstood. No kids? Grace was 17, a senior in high school. Hardly a toddler running around with frosting on her face. I felt something sharp twist in my stomach as I glanced across the table at her, head bent over her notebook, pencil moving quietly. And I realized then it wasn't about age. It wasn't about head count. It wasn't about rules. It was about exclusion. About someone drawing a line and deciding she wasn't on the right side of it. I didn't answer Ethan right away. I just closed my phone slowly, my hands suddenly heavy. I looked at Grace, still sketching flowers, not knowing yet that the family she called hers had quietly decided she didn't belong. I knew in that moment exactly what I had to do.
I didn't say anything to Grace that evening. I couldn't yet. My hands were shaking too much as I finished grading papers, pretending everything was fine while my mind ran in circles. But after she went to bed, I sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the message from Ethan until the words blurred. The venue's strict, no kids. No kids. It echoed in my head like it was bigger than just this one moment. The next morning, as soon as I dropped Grace off at school, I called Ethan. My voice was quiet but steady as I asked him straight out, "Ethan, is this really about age?" He sighed. I could hear his usual smooth tone. My brother had always been the charming one, the one who knew how to say exactly what people wanted to hear. "Liv, you know how these things are. We have a limited head count. The venue's strict. It's not personal." but that was the thing. It was personal. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew it deep in my chest, because this wasn't the first time Grace had been treated like an extra, an afterthought. I thought back to the Christmas 2 years ago when everyone got personalized stockings except for her. I'd shrugged it off then, told myself it was a mistake. Told myself I was imagining things when my mother introduced her as Olivia's girl instead of saying her name. I'd made excuses every time my sister forgot Grace's birthday, every time family group texts accidentally left her out. But this felt different. This was official. A wedding invitation, a guest list, a line drawn in gold foil script, adults only, 18 and over, no exceptions. A week before Ethan's wedding, Grace and I were in the grocery store picking up ingredients for dinner. She was quieter than usual, her headphones in, but not playing music. I could tell she'd been thinking about it. At the checkout line, she finally asked, voice so soft I almost didn't hear it, "Do you think if I wasn't adopted, they'd want me there?" The question hit me like a punch to the chest. I froze mid-swipe of my card. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Her tone wasn't bitter. It wasn't even sad. It was flat, like she'd already decided the answer. "No," I said firmly, putting down the card. But we both knew. Deep down, we both knew that wasn't entirely true. That night, as Grace sat sketching quietly in her room, I opened my laptop and stared at the wedding invitation again. I hovered over the RSVP link, my hand shaking for just a second. Then I clicked, "Not attending." No message, no explanation, just no. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Saw your RSVP. Everything okay?" Then, an hour later, "If this is about the age thing, Liv, we're just being consistent, nothing personal." I didn't reply. I didn't need to explain myself anymore. Because in that silence, I realized something I should have understood years ago. Being quiet, being patient, making myself smaller to keep the peace, none of that had ever made my family see Grace. None of it had ever made me see anyone. For so long, I thought if I kept trying, kept inviting them in, kept hosting holidays, kept buying extra gifts, they'd come around. They'd learn to see Grace as my daughter, as part of this family. But now I knew, some people never see you until you stop showing up. That weekend, I cleared my calendar. No wedding, no rushing around buying last-minute gifts. Instead, I planned something else entirely. When Grace came home from school that Friday, I was waiting in the kitchen with a bag packed. "Where are we going?" she asked, brows raising. "Somewhere that doesn't have guest lists," I said with a smile. "You up for a little road trip?" She hesitated just a second, then nodded. And just like that, we walked out the door. Together. No wedding required.
That night, after our quiet dinner, as Grace tucked herself under her blanket with her sketchbook in her lap, I sat alone on the couch staring at my phone. The RSVP had already been sent. Not attending. No note, no call, nothing. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd let it sit. But of course, they didn't. At 7:43 p.m., Melissa, my middle sister, lit up the family group chat first. "Olivia, are you really not coming to Ethan's wedding? What's going on?" I didn't respond. By 8:15, my mom's name flashed across the screen. I answered this time more out of reflex than anything else. "Olivia," she said, voice tight with that tone I knew too well, half sweetness, half warning. "I heard from your sister. You're not coming? This really isn't necessary, sweetheart." I kept my voice even. Olivia wasn't invited. I'm not coming without her. There was a pause. I could almost hear her frowning.
You know it's not personal. It's just venue rules. Adults only. No exceptions. No exceptions, I repeated quietly, letting it sink in again. It's one night, my mom pressed, her voice softening like she was offering me some kind of mercy. Don't make this about something bigger than it is. I could feel my heart tighten in my chest, not with sadness this time, but with something sharper. Rage wasn't loud, not for me. Rage was this quiet, steady pulse under my ribs that felt like a silent decision. I'm not coming, I repeated. Then I hung up. By morning, things escalated. Melissa again. You always have to make things about you. Then Brittany, like clockwork. This isn't about Grace. You're making it about her. That one stuck in my throat for a long minute. Because it was about Grace. It had always been about Grace. And it wasn't just about this wedding. It was about every ignored birthday, every dinner where she sat quietly while everyone else's names were shouted from across the room. I glanced over at Grace as she sat on the floor in the living room, flipping through her phone. Her face was blank, her posture slouched like she was trying to make herself as small as possible. Then I saw her do something that hit me harder than any group chat message. She opened the photo app on her phone, pulled up the picture she'd saved of the dress she was planning to wear, the soft green one she picked out weeks ago, and she deleted them, one by one. Her thumb moved slow, deliberate. Select, delete, trash bin, gone. She didn't say a word. I walked into the kitchen so she wouldn't see my face as tears stung the back of my eyes. Not loud, not angry. Quiet, steady. That was my rage now. Eric, my husband, found me standing at the sink 10 minutes later, my hands gripping the edge of the counter like I was trying to hold myself in place. They don't get it, I said softly, staring down at the faucet. Eric put his hands on my shoulders, steady and warm. No, they don't. I took a deep breath. For years, I had been the one holding everyone together. I cooked, I hosted, I made sure there were extra chairs and special desserts. I made sure everyone's needs were met. Except my own. Except Grace's. I thought about every family event where she had been there but not really seen. The Easter baskets that never had her name. The way my mom always introduced her as Olivia's daughter instead of just Grace. And I realized then I wasn't going to keep showing up for people who couldn't show up for her. That morning, I opened my banking app and paused the automatic payments I'd been sending to help cover my parents' mortgage. Quietly. No announcement, no explanation, just stop. If they could exclude Grace so easily, they could handle life without my help too. That was the line.
That Christmas morning felt unlike any I had known in years. There were no folding chairs lined up awkwardly in the dining room, no piles of mashed potatoes waiting for someone else's approval, no last-minute trips to the store because someone forgot the cranberry sauce. Instead, it was just me, Noah, and Grace. We stayed in our pajamas until almost noon. Grace wore her favorite oversized hoodie with a cartoon fox on the front, curled up in the armchair sketching as snow drifted quietly outside the window. Noah and I made lasagna together. Yes, lasagna for Christmas. Something about it felt rebellious and perfect at the same time. No pressure, no pretending. There were no calls from Brittany that morning, no texts from Melissa asking where she should park or if I had enough ice. Just a calm, quiet house filled with the smell of baking cheese and the occasional soft laughter as Noah tried to sneak an extra slice of garlic bread before dinner was ready. Around 3 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my mom's name on the screen. For a moment, I just stared at it.
Then, quietly, I slid the phone into a drawer. I wasn't ready for their voices yet. Not today. Instead, I focused on Grace, on how her face seemed more relaxed now, her posture looser, like she wasn't waiting for the next time someone would overlook her. At one point during the day, Grace looked up from her sketchbook and said, "This feels nice." I nodded. "It does." After dinner, as Noah washed dishes and Grace sorted through the small stack of gifts we had wrapped for her, I allowed myself to look at my phone again. There were 3 missed calls from my mom, 2 from Melissa, 1 from Brittany, and then a voicemail from my mom. I hesitated, then pressed play. Her voice was quiet, tight in that way it always got when she didn't want to sound upset but couldn't quite hide it. "Olivia, I just wanted to say we feel like we've lost you. It doesn't have to be like this. It's not good for anyone. Just call me, okay?" I didn't call her back. Not right away. Because as I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by the quiet clink of dishes and the soft rustle of wrapping paper, I realized something important. They had never really had me. They had a version of me, a version that kept the family running, that hosted dinners, that made sure everyone was comfortable while quietly absorbing every slight and every exclusion. But not the real me. The real me was standing there now, watching my daughter smile softly as she carefully folded wrapping paper for her sketchbook later. The real me wasn't interested in smoothing things over anymore. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was just done. That was the moment I chose peace over obligation. I wasn't going to fill my house with people who didn't see my daughter as family. I wasn't going to make space for those who only noticed my worth when it was convenient for them. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because everything was perfect, but because for once, I wasn't holding up the weight of a family that didn't want to carry me back. I sat down beside Grace, brushing a stray curl from her face. "Merry Christmas, baby," I said quietly. "Merry Christmas, Mom," she whispered back. The days after Christmas passed in a quiet rhythm that felt almost sacred. Me, Noah, and Grace building something that didn't need outside approval. But I won't lie. The silence from my family hung there like frost on the windows, visible but no longer chilling. It was around the 3rd evening after Christmas, just as the sky was darkening into that deep blue before true night, when Grace broke the stillness. She was sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, her sketchbook balanced on her knees. I was folding laundry on the couch while Noah tuned his guitar absent-mindedly. Without looking up, Grace asked in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, "Mom, if I wasn't adopted, do you think they'd like me more?" The question landed like a weight in my chest. My hands froze mid-fold. It wasn't the first time I'd seen her hesitate or pull back from family moments, but this was the first time she'd put words to it. I set the shirt aside, crossed the room, and knelt beside her. "Honey," I said, my voice steady, "they might pretend better, smile more in front of others, but real love, it's not about pretending. It's about showing up when it matters." Grace finally met my eyes, her pencil still in hand, and then she said something that made me realize how far she'd come, how much she'd grown through all this. "I don't think they want them to like me anymore." It wasn't bitter, it wasn't sad, it was calm, clear, like she'd made her own choice, independent of what I'd always wanted for her. And that was the moment it clicked for me completely. Grace didn't need my family's approval.
She needed my choice, my full, unapologetic choice to stand with her, even if it meant letting go of people I once bent over backwards to please. That night, I opened my laptop and wrote one simple email to my family. I won't be hosting next year. We've decided to do things differently. I hope you understand. No explanations, no debate. Just the truth. I didn't need them to get it. I needed Grace to know I wasn't afraid to choose her over tradition. Over the next week, the expected reactions came. Melissa sent a text full of guilt-laced jabs. Brittany sent a long-winded message about how family means forgiving and moving on. My mother left me another voicemail, this time quieter, almost pleading. But I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because I was finally at peace with my decision. My job wasn't to patch things up for appearances anymore. My job was to show Grace every day that she came first, that she didn't have to shrink herself or make herself easier for others to love. One afternoon, while Grace was sketching in her room, Noah asked me if I was sure, if there was any part of me that would miss the big, noisy Christmas dinners or the long table crowded with people. I thought about it honestly. I said, I'll miss what I thought it was, but not what it really was. And that's the difference. Grace didn't need a family that only celebrated her when it was convenient. She needed a mother who wouldn't flinch when it mattered most. By New Year's Eve, the texts slowed down, the calls stopped, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe in my own house without worrying about which version of myself I needed to be. That night, just before midnight, Grace and I stood on the porch, wrapped in blankets, holding mugs of hot cider, while snow fell in slow, soft flakes. No fireworks, no countdown, just the quiet weight of a new kind of beginning. She glanced at me and smiled, not the careful, polite smile she used at family events, but a real one, light and unburdened. I'm glad it's just us. Me too. And in that moment, I realized something important. Sometimes recognition doesn't come from the people you thought you needed it from. Sometimes it comes from the quiet certainty in your own heart that you did right by the people who matter most. That's the kind of peace I wish for anyone listening. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs it. Leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose the quiet that makes you feel whole.
From that winter on, our lives moved differently. Not quieter, just simpler, more honest. There were no more family group chats filled with half-truths and obligation. No more forced holiday dinners where Grace felt like a guest in her own story. Instead, it was just us, me, Grace, and Noah. We found new rhythms. Friday night dinners at the small Thai place near our house, Sunday walks through the park, long talks late into the night about school, about art, about anything Grace wanted to say without feeling small for it. And here's the truth. Letting go wasn't easy. There were moments when I'd glance at my phone, wondering if maybe I should respond to the latest message from Brittany or Melissa. But then I'd look at Grace, laughing with Noah over some silly joke, curled up with her sketchbook by the window, and I'd remember why we chose this path. Because this wasn't about shutting people out forever. It was about choosing the kind of love that doesn't ask you to shrink, that doesn't put conditions on your worth. Grace never asked for much, but she deserved everything. Acceptance, belonging, a family that didn't just say they loved her, but showed it. And I realized, so did I. For too long, I thought love was about keeping everyone happy, about smoothing things over, about giving people endless chances to do better. But love isn't about endless chances. Love is about standing up, quietly and firmly, for the people who matter most. In the end, I wasn't teaching Grace how to walk away from family. I was teaching her how to walk toward herself. So, to anyone listening who's ever felt caught between peace and pretending, between holding on and letting go, know this: choosing peace isn't cruel, it's brave. And sometimes the quietest choices echo the loudest. If this story speaks to you, leave a comment below. Share your own experience. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because sometimes the strongest kind of love is the one that says, I choose you, every time.